Getting a survivor or killer to level 100 in Forsaken is a huge achievement. It means you actually understand the character, and you get a clean, exclusive Milestone 4 skin to show it off. That being said, not all Milestone 4 grinds are created equal. Some are relatively easy, while others can take absurd amounts of time, and I want to rank all of them in a tier list based on their difficulty. So today, we're breaking down every survivor and killer by how challenging their Milestone 4 grind really is. From the absolute freebies to the grind-heavy nightmares, here's the full difficulty tier list. Let's get into the video.
Ranking criteria.
Ranking every killer and survivor based on as broad of a topic as how difficult it is to reach Mastery 4 is hard. So, my friends and I did these rankings based on a few key factors, and I want to quickly go over them before we actually rank anything. First off, XP opportunities. While you do have the option to gain XP from using your abilities, not every character's options for gaining XP are created equally, with some having only one method and others having more or less a handful. As gaining XP is how you level up, we figured this is an important factor. Small disclaimer, since completing generators is a thing for all survivors, I'm not taking that into consideration here, unless it directly coincides with the survivor's playstyle. Second, how hard it is to learn to play the survivor or killer. When picking up a new character, you're probably not going to know a lot about how to play them for a bit, and it'll take time to see results. How long that takes can vary, and if that difficulty is very present, it can get in the way of you winning matches, and therefore slowing down the process of leveling up. Third, overall viability. Now this won't play that much of a factor in ranking, but it is something we kept in mind as playing a good survivor or killer can obviously make a difference. And last, personal experience. This tier list is coming from me and some others who have sunk a bunch of time into getting Milestone 4s, and we've very likely had different experiences with the game compared to you. So just keep that in mind. Noob is the first survivor we're covering, and wow, we're off to a great start. 3 ways to gain XP off abilities, and they're all extremely easy to achieve. A person who's as competent with asim killer games as Basil and Haitoko are at developing Forsaken could figure out how to generate a bunch of XP with Noob. And as Noob is a survivalist, you aren't really required to help out your team and can be selfish if you want. Although, you'll have to learn how to manage your stamina for when chase time rolls around. If you do want to help out your team, Noob does have the tools to extend chases to extreme levels, buying the rest of your team a ton of time to complete generators. Noob is alright, so I didn't really factor overall viability into the equation. During the majority of my time getting Milestone 4 Noob, I already had a few Milestone 4s under my belt, so I went into this with some much needed experience. And this applies to my friends too. So hypothetically, if you were going for Milestone Noob first, it would very likely be much harder. That being said, you start off with 2 other survivors, Elliot and Shedletsky, so you could very easily switch to either of those and then come back to Noob later, and that's why I don't think it's a huge issue. With all of this in mind, Noob goes in the very easy tier as an excellent survivor to go for Milestone 4 after maining another character. Shedletsky is the most well-designed survivor in the game, with both a stun and a heal in his arsenal. You'll never have a bad time playing Shedletsky due to how consistent he is, but this isn't about game design, this is about how hard it is to reach Milestone 4 with him, and he definitely isn't the easiest survivor for that. This is mostly because Shedletsky has only one way to gain XP with his abilities, and that's to land a stun. So, if you want to quickly progress your Milestone 4 grind, you'll need to be aggressively hitting as many stuns as possible. This is a pretty tall task, especially when starting out. As for personal experiences, well, if you watch the Forsaken Skins video, you'll know how that went. A very long process, but a blast nonetheless. Shedletsky's going into hard tier due to a lack of ways to gain XP off abilities and the requirement of knowing how to reliably land stuns in order to progress the grind faster. While he is a fun survivor to play, it's a bit of a long process. Elliot is not fun to go for Milestone 4. As a support survivor, you already have a large target on your back if spotted by the killer. Now add in a max health decrease and only one way to gain XP with your abilities, and you can see why I'm currently not having fun getting Elliot to Milestone 4. Healing your teammates is the name of the game for leveling Elliot up fast, and sometimes you'll just have a team which isn't that cooperative. Throwing pizzas and healing your team might seem like a free XP grind until your team's anti-pizza detection vision radius kicks in, and they'll fight tooth and nail to avoid picking it up. So some games you'll be on a healing spree, and other games you'll just be standing around doing nothing or getting tunneled by the killer first thing, getting next to no XP with your abilities. Hard tier. It's saved from very hard tier because what I have in that tier is on a whole other level of challenging to reach Milestone 4 with. Despite Builderman falling off recently, he's still very fun to play, and that extends to the Milestone grind. While you have a slew of ways to gain XP, they're locked behind long cooldowns. Builderman is also very tricky to pick up, as you have to figure out the best sentry spots. Builderman guide coming soon, by the way. And your max health is cut by 10. You'll want to have basic competency in managing your stamina before picking up Builderman if you want to see results. That being said, when everything does click, you'll start leveling up faster. As Builderman has both pros and cons to its Milestone 4 grind, it falls in the average tier. You have a few reliable ways to gain XP, but there is a bit of a skill floor in play.
007.
Now, not only is there a huge skill floor with N7, but you only have one way of gaining XP with him, and that's by fooling the killer with your clones. Something you're realistically not going to figure out instantly, or even for a while. So we have a difficult survivor to pick up, and more or less 0 ways to gain XP off your abilities. This one's a no-brainer. Very hard tier. Can be hard to initially pick up as you need to land backstabs to actually stun the killer, but once you know the ins and outs of how to play 2-time, Milestone 4 progression will greatly speed up. You also have multiple ways to gain XP. Even hitting a front stab will net you a good deal of XP. Add in the fact that 2-time is an extremely viable survivor, and you have the perfect recipe for one of the easier Milestone 4 grinds in the game. 2-time gets to chill in easy tier. It's not quite at the level of Noob in terms of Milestone 4 difficulty, but it's still an alright grind. Since we're on the topic of milestones, I want to make it a goal to hit the milestone of 10,000 subscribers on the channel by the end of the year, and I might just have something special in store for you guys if it happens. So if you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing.
Guest 1337.
Getting guest 1337 to Milestone 4 is extremely dependent on hitting your blocks and punches, as that's your only source of gaining XP from your abilities. So basically, you either fail your blocks and get punished, leading to possibly dying, meaning no XP gained, including missing out on win XP, or you get a block, which lets you double dip if you land the punch, since it also gives the same XP. Guest status as a fraud shines the most, because the only way to get money is by being successful in what he does, which is notoriously hard to guarantee. But credit where it's due, because once you meet a cracked guest on your team, it's like an injection of hope. Since there is no just use the ability, or ability that you use while not necessarily being in danger for XP, it's trial by fire for Milestone 4 progression. Average tier. There's easier Milestone 4 grinds, but there's also harder Milestone 4 grinds. If it wasn't for the block punch combo offering so much XP, it would have been in hard tier. Taph is a weird survivor when it comes to the Milestone 4 grind. While yes, you do have 2 options of gaining XP using your abilities, I'm pretty sure you don't get any XP if your tripwires are broken by the killer instead of them being activated. Being a setup character also means you won't have the opportunity to complete generators while you're placing your tripwires and whatnot. There's also a lot of strategy involved with trip mine and tripwire windup / placements that you're probably not going to pick up on immediately, and until you get that down, you might have a rough time gaining XP off your abilities, or even surviving rounds. Taph goes into hard tier as there's quite a bit of skill involved with your tools, but just like some of the other survivors in this tier list, once you figure it out, things will get easier.
Dusekkar.
So first off, you're a support class, so get ready to be targeted. Learning how to support your team while keeping yourself alive is a very precise balancing act with Dusekkar. Although, if you figure out how to land your plasma beams, you'll net some XP here and there. Dusekkar is still a very hard survivor to pick up at the end of the day, and that's going to drastically increase its Milestone 4 difficulty, finding its way into the hard tier, just barely staving off the very hard tier as it has a variety of ways of gaining XP.
That stupid robot that I hate.
Pretty much the best survivor in the game right now. Has 3 whole ways to gain XP that aren't too out of your way, and while abusing the verticality you get from tricks requires some skill, the same cannot be said for simply chaining tricks together. You're more or less rewarded with XP for getting out of chases, as both performing 3 tricks in a row and utilizing phase nets you XP. And you don't need a lot of skill to initially pick up the survivor. It's a pretty obvious easy tier.
chance.
Last for the survivors, chance. Everything in his kit is in some way inconsistent, and your only source of ability XP is from one shot, which isn't even guaranteed to work. That being said, a ranged stun is still a ranged stun, being an extremely safe method to stun the killer if you're starting out and can learn to aim with shift lock. As long as you're not being chased by the killer, you should be alright. Now, if you are being chased by the killer, don't flip coins while you're in a chase! Average tier. There's some skill involved with chance, especially when you're dependent on landing one shot as your only means of getting ability XP.
Slasher.
Slasher's Milestone 4 difficulty has greatly changed since the Halloween update. Previously, it was a good but not great killer option that's greatly elevated if you know how to manage your stamina, similar to Noob. If you had that skill under your belt, it wouldn't be long before you knew the inner workings of Slasher and could clean house against randoms. And since a few of your moves grant XP simply on hit, you could quickly gather up XP when it's your turn on killer. I probably would have put Slasher in easy tier before the Halloween update, however that's then and this is now. So, what changed in the Halloween update? Veeronica. It's abysmal to play Slasher now if one is in the lobby, and there usually will be one. Now take that experience and make it into an entire Milestone 4 grind. Demoted from easy tier to average tier. Enough said. John Doe is arguably the hardest killer to learn, although you get a fair share of XP options from your abilities. But then again, every killer has that benefit too. It is going to take a long time to learn how to play John Doe right, from the best digital footprint placements to positioning your scary spikes. For a Milestone 4 grind, this is probably the worst one for a killer, and it lands in a hard tier because of that. The name of the game for leveling up Cool Kid is learning when's the right time to use walk speed override, and it's something that requires trial and error. Emphasis on error. Also, stamina management, but that applies for every killer to some extent as well. All of your abilities outside of your M1, then again you can kill survivors with your M1, grant XP on hit, which is great for Milestone 4 progression. That being said, Cool Kid isn't the best killer in the current metagame, which does hurt its stock a bit in my tier list. Average tier, pretty much middle of the pack in Milestone 4 difficulty for killers. 1x is hard to get acclimated to, as you have to have good stamina management and projectile aiming, especially when your ability XP options are all based on landing your projectile abilities. How long it takes for everything to click will vary from player to player. Me and my friends got it down on the quicker end and managed to progress Milestone 4 somewhat fast. It barely gets to chill in easy tier. 1x's Milestone 4 grind can be difficult, but if you get the skills needed to play down, you'll level up quick after. Noli, 5-star difficulty killer by the way, is not a hard killer to pick up, primarily requiring you to figure out how flexible the steering is for Void Rush, which you can simply experiment within a VIP server until you're comfortable enough with it. If you've Milestone 4'd a different killer with a projectile before using Noli, 5-star difficulty killer by the way, Nova shouldn't be an issue either. You also get a bunch of XP opportunities with your kit, including XP for both hitting and slamming a survivor. Additionally, Noli, 5-star difficulty killer by the way, is extremely viable in the current metagame. Because of all these benefits, Noli, 5-star difficulty killer by the way, goes in easy tier for a Milestone 4 grind. You know, I feel like I'm forgetting to say something. Oh right, 5-star difficulty killer by the way.
Guest 666.
Despite being hard countered by a large table, Guest 666 has an extremely easy Milestone 4 grind going for it, offering a plethora of XP abilities with a pretty good payout. You get XP for simply starting a blood hunt. At this rate, in a future patch, they'll make it so starting the round as Guest 666 will give you XP. It's also one of the best killers in the game, so long as you don't have a competent looper up against you, making it even better for a Milestone 4 grind. Another addition to the very easy tier, land your abilities and you'll level up in no time. And that's the list, top to bottom. The fact that these Milestone 4 journeys vary so much is what I believe makes them special. While some are a breeze, quite a few are a battle, and pushing through the latter ones is what really shows your dedication. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and which characters you think deserve a different placement. See ya.